Thank you. So you ran into one of your classmates from Watchung.
Oh, yeah.
His thumbs up.
Good evening, everyone. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to make sure that we're all aware of the mask mandate and that all of our masks, when they are worn, are over our noses and properly worn. I will not start the meeting until we have compliance with the mandate. I will wait. I will wait.
But this is all we do. Recess. We could sit here and wait till. I don't think they're gonna take it. I think we could. Just go to.
That was me.
We're waiting.
There are two people. Let's go to recess. Go to executive session. Let's just go to executive session.
You gotta start the meeting.
Necessary.
G, can you stop the broadcast until we're ready to begin?
The public should see this. Don't stop the
Right.
The North Hunterdon-Voorhees Regional High School District Board of Ed meeting on Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021 is now called to order. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10-4-6, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by submission of notice of time, date, location, or instructions for remote access to the Hunterdon Democrat, the Star Ledger on January 21st, 2021, and subsequently re-advertised on July 22nd, 2021. Notice and, to the extent known, the agenda of this meeting has been posted at the North Hunterdon High School and Voorhees High School and provided to the municipal clerks of Bethlehem Township, Caledon Boroughs, Town of Clinton, Clinton Township, Franklin Township, Glen Gardner Borough, Hampton Borough, Highbridge Borough, Lebanon Township, Tewksbury Township, and Union Township, as well as all other interested parties, and posted on the district website. Fire exits are located in the direction indicated. If alerted to fire, please move in a calm and orderly fashion to the nearest smoke-free exit. At this time, I ask that you silence all your cell phones. Please be advised that in accordance with Executive Order 251, school masks or face masks are to be worn indoors in all school buildings. The order applies to all after-school activities, events, and meetings held inside, including Board of Ed meetings. We ask for your cooperation to remain masked throughout the meeting so the board can conduct its business in an orderly fashion. In accordance with Board Policy 0161, the board may call a recess or adjourn this meeting at any time if necessary, such as non-compliance with the mask requirement. Katie, can I have a roll call?
Ms. Bonomi,
Present.
Mr. Chapman,
Present.
Ms. Crisologo,
Present.
Mr. Farbanish, Ms. Hintz,
President.
Ms. Hoffman,
Here.
Mr. Kirchberger,
Here.
Ms. McLaughlin,
Here.
Mr. Mielek,
Here.
Ms. Salino,
Here.
Mr. Straight,
Here.
Ms. Fiato.
We all rise for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So is this the appropriate?
Yep.
Yes.
I have a call. I'd like to call for a motion and a second to approve moving into executive session at this point. So moved.
Whoa, Roger. and
Second.
Rob.
Roger and Rob.
Let me just clarify, the move it and the second, that is to take the agenda out of order and,
Yes.
and to move into executive session, is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to, Katie, do we need a roll call vote?
We can do a voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or against? Nay. So we have a call for a motion and a second to move to adopt the attached resolution 112321-2 for executive session to discuss matters falling under categories 4, 7, and 8 as reflected in the attached resolution. The board expects to be in executive session for approximately an hour. Upon that return, we will move back to public session where action will be taken. Oh, all those in favor?
Aye. Motion
Do we have a
first.
motion and a second
We have a
for
motion.
Oh, motion and a
executive?
second?
We did it.
We
We
did
did
it.
it.
We
We did it. We're good. We're in exec.
We're in executive.
about another half an hour. Thank you.
Call for a motion and a second to return from executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry.
Was it Shelley or Carl?
Shelley.
Do we have a, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. All right. Can I have a call for a motion and a second to approve agenda item 4.1, which would be the meetings from the minutes from the meeting of October 26th.
So moved.
Second. Any questions? Comment?
Roger, Deb.
Roger and Deb,
Roger, Deb.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Ladies, thank you for your patience. I'd like to have our school board representatives present their, our school board student representatives present their reports this evening. Vanessa, Maline, I would love if we could start with Northumberland's report.
Of course, I would like to start off with a huge congratulations to our varsity girls volleyball team, girls field hockey, and both boys and girls cross country. They all brought home Group 3 sectional state championships this past weekend. The girls volleyball team had a record of 29 games, 1 to 2 lost. The field hockey team had a game of 21 wins to 2 losses. I also want to bring to attention the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Club as they started their Operation Christmas Child, bringing in 26 gift boxes for children in need. We also had our blood drive today, which was very successful, not just with the student body at North, but also with the community. I also want to give a huge congratulations to our fall show, which was Night Chills. We did very good. We sold over 500 tickets. We also had an online streaming service where we could watch from the comfort of our homes. I also want to bring to attention that the National Thespian Honor Society is holding a gift wrapping service after the concerts on both December 9th and 16th at 5:30 for the drop-off, and then pickup would be at 8:30. This would go to support the North Hunterdon Theater Organization.
Thank you, Vanessa. And Bethany, do you? I'm getting there. Can you tell us, can you provide us the report from Voorhees?
Yes, I would like to take this time to acknowledge and congratulate the Voorhees High School Key Club on accumulating around 6,000 pounds of food, breaking a school record, but most importantly, this allows 61 families in the Hunterdon County area to receive this food. In addition, all food pantries in the Hunterdon County area will receive this food as well. I and many people are beyond proud of the work Key Club has done and thankful for the impact their initiative has made.
I want to remind everyone we still have a mask mandate, and it doesn't mean that we are excusing not wearing a mask. Our next part of our agenda is to have, is Kathy here?
Yes, she is.
Okay. She waited. Thank you, Kathy. Ms. Kathy Mantell of Nisavashia LLP, Mount Arlington, New Jersey, provide us our comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. Copies of the 2021 audit summary and synopsis are provided at the meeting for public review.
Thank you. Happy to go over the financial highlights of the district's financial report. Just want to remind you that the actual CAFR is about 200 pages long, and in the essence of time, I prepare a financial highlight for you that's about 2 pages long, but it really does include the key information from the report. First thing I'd like to say is we'll take a look at the fund balances at June of 20 and June of 21. And they vary for different reasons. And as you can see, as I've outlined, all of the funds that have been listed, the capital reserve account, the maintenance, the excess surplus, unemployment, encumbrances, and what has been used in the subsequent year's budget, have all been committed, they're restricted, and the only unassigned or unrestricted funds are at the bottom of that analysis. It's $2,880,000 at the end of June of 21. I will also talk about two things that happened during the fiscal year ending June 30th, and that was that we implemented a new accounting standard. It was called GASB 84, had to do with fiduciary funds. And this year you'll see that unemployment and payroll deductions are included in the general fund, and student activity and scholarship funds are included in the special revenue funds. They're included in the numbers that I just displayed on the page. The other thing is that the New Jersey Department of Education increased the unassigned fund balance for school districts. When the law was signed, said that districts could maintain up to 4% as unassigned fund balance, but then when the calculations came out to the auditors, they required the 4%. So that's why you see 2.880 this year opposed to 1,321,000. We don't really know why they did that. I think it's because that you're in the second year of the pandemic, and so at the time that they signed the law, I believe they thought there was a lot of things going on and that districts would need to have some reserves for unpredicted costs. So with that, the middle of the first page talks about how you generated that change in fund balance over the year. You have a few excess revenues. The biggest piece comes from what you don't spend on your budget. Our firm does over 80 school district audits, and certainly in this past year, a lot of funds weren't utilized because of the change in operations and school programming. So that's not unusual. And then at the bottom of the page, I'd just like to highlight to the board how much fund balance you used in your next year's budget, and that has been very consistent in the district. Not easy to maintain that, but you do that very well. And then on the second page, I show you the activity or the transactions that occurred in the capital and maintenance reserve for the year. So at the end of the year, you have 7.9, almost $8 million in capital reserve. That's really important because you have a 2% cap on your budget, and you need to be able to fix all of your buildings, maintain all of your buildings. And so it's very difficult to do that. And so the state allows you to put excess reserves or any savings that you have in a given year into these reserves for when you need to make repairs to your buildings, maintenance and capital. And the capital projects funds are funds that you authorize either by referendum, or it could have been projects from capital reserve. And there's 3 open projects, and those are the balances of those. Again, pandemic situation in the food service fund. All the districts across the state, there's no revenue because you're not having full food service where students are coming through the line and paying. So revenue is down. Operating expenses were down, and of course you were able to access some federal subsidies. So at the end of the year, the food service program ended with unrestricted fund balance of $74,255. And then the last piece of financial information are the district's long-term liabilities. You have serial bonds payable from projects that have been authorized. Compensated absences is the accumulated sick and vacation time that employees have earned as of June 30th of 21. Each year you go out for capital leases, you have a balance of $2.8 million, and then the net pension liability that has been required to be recorded for the past 7 years. Division of Pensions prepares all that information, and the liability that's reflected in the district's records are just for PERS because the state covers the TPAF portion. And that's really financial highlight. We have one other thing, and that's talk about audit comments. So again, the audit is comprehensive. It's not only a financial statement audit, but we also are dictated to look at compliance with New Jersey DOE regulation. And on top of that, there's yet another aspect to the audit, and that is when you receive over 700 or expend over 750,000 of federal and state funds, you're subject to a single audit, and that's additional compliance requirements. District expended 876,000 for federal grants and 7.8 million for state grants. So with all of that, with all that scrutiny, all that compliance testing, district has no audit recommendations. And then the firm, we look at things that might be of interest or to bring to your attention. You have another GASB that's to be implemented next year. It's GASB 87 on leases. And we will, as a firm, we research that and we notify our clients as to how it's going to impact you before it happens. Put an alert out there with the COVID federal funding, lots of money out there, several grants that the district receives, that the procurement and the rules pertaining to that are going to be very stringent. So we're working with administration to make sure that you have the best information. And sick and vacation pay, there's been some news about towns that may not be following the law, and we're just highlighting to each district that you make sure you confer with your labor attorney to make sure that you are in compliance with the sick and vacation leave law. And then we made one management suggestion as far as updating the capital asset inventory. We didn't think it was of such a nature that we would make a recommendation. It's just a housekeeping item. And with that, that concludes my report. Anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay, well, thank you very much for allowing me to come here and give you the financial highlights. And I hope that you and your families have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
I have a call for a motion and a second to approve the receipt and acceptance of the comprehensive annual financial report and the auditor's management report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021, as prepared by the district's appointed certified public accounting firm, Nova Scotia LLP of Mount Arlington, New Jersey. Second, Deb. And this will be a roll call vote.
Kim and Deb.
Mhm.
Ms. Bonomi,
Yes.
Mr. Chapman,
Yes.
Ms. Crisologo,
Yes.
Mr. Farbanish, Ms. Hintz,
Yes.
Ms. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Kirchberger,
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Mueller,
Yes.
Ms. Salino,
Yes.
Mr. Straight,
Yes.
and Ms. Fiato.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Then I move to the Chief School Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Jessica. First, I'd like to extend some congratulations and talk about some things that have happened in our district. As was mentioned earlier, congratulations to all of our sports teams who have now wrapped up their seasons. A special congratulations to the following teams who made it to the sectional level or higher. Voorhees Boys Soccer made it to the Central Jersey Group 2 sectional semifinals, set a new record for the program of 16 wins in a season. Voorhees Boys Cross Country was the North 2 Group 2 sectional champions, and Jack Pavaglione placed second at the Group 2 meet and seventh at the meet of champions to cap his cross-country career. Voorhees Girls Cross Country was the North 2 Group 2 sectional champions. North Hunterdon gymnast and freshman Jana Kawas placed second on the vault for the Central 2 region. North Hunterdon cheerleading had many big wins during the season, but their last one, that was the biggest one, they stay undefeated at the Ridge High School Northeast Cheer Competition with 2 first-place finishes, and they were named grand champions for the entire day. North Hunterdon Girls Cross Country was second place at the Group 3 meet and 4th place at the Meet of Champions. North Hunterdon Boys Cross Country is the Group 3 champions, as was mentioned. North Hunterdon Girls Volleyball is also a Group 3 champion, and North Hunterdon Field Hockey was a Group 3 champion, which was the first group championship in program history at North Hunterdon High School. So congratulations to all those athletes, coaches, and job well done over the fall. I do want to remind everyone, winter concerts are returning to in-person performances this year. North Hunterdon concerts will be on December 9th and 16th, and Voorhees concerts will be on December 14th and 16th. Details are on the school's websites. School districts will have an early dismissal tomorrow on November 24th, and will be closed for November 25th and 26th for the Thanksgiving holiday. We wish all of our students and staff members a fun and relaxing holiday with their families and friends. And last but certainly not least, I would like to thank both Ryan Hoffman and Brian Chapman for volunteering their time to be part of the No Place for Hate committees at each of our schools. Ryan will participate at Voorhees, and Brian will participate at North. I know this will be a welcome addition to each school, as their participation as board members will increase the effectiveness of this important endeavor. Also, as we do continue to have bias incidents at each school, I want to remind our students and parents that they should report any bias incidents that affect them or a friend to a trusted adult in the school. Whether this is a counselor, a teacher, or someone else the student has a connection with, that person can then assist and involve other staff as needed. We want to reassure our commitment to providing a safe and secure learning environment for each and every one of our students. So, and then I have the HIB report. At the last month's meeting, there were 0 incidences reported to the board. So I need a motion and a second to affirm that there were 0 incidents at the last board meeting.
So moved.
Sorry?
Second.
Roger? All in favor?
That's
Aye.
Yep.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. And then I have to report that there were 3 incidences since the last board meeting reported. 1 of them was founded, 2 were unfounded. And so you'll be voting to affirm those at the next meeting. And then we have our monthly reports there. If there's any questions? If not,
I'd like to report out the official school board election results from November 22nd. John Mueller, representing Calathon Tewksbury Township, was reelected for a 3-year term. Len Barbanish, representing Union Township, was elected for a 3-year term. Daniel Spanton was elected, representing Clinton Township and Lebanon Borough, was elected for a 3-year term. Tara Hint, representing Highbridge Borough and Lebanon Township, was reelected for a 3-year term. And Ms. Ryan Hoffman from Highbridge, Lebanon Township, has a 1-year unexpired term that she was reelected to. And I would be remiss if I did not thank Rachel McLaughlin for her representation for the last 3 years of service. December 21st, 2021 is a regular scheduled board meeting at 7 o'clock. As of now, that meeting is scheduled in the district office. I need a motion and a second to approve the 2022 board meeting calendar at this point.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Sorry. I'd like to announce that we do have the appointment of the members of the nominating committee. They will be, Roger will be chairing that committee, along with Kim Salino and Ryan. Forgive me. So Roger will be chairing, Kim Salino and Ryan Hoffman will be on the committee. I am asking that all board members to submit their nomination forms to the chairperson of the nominating committee, and Roger will be coordinating those efforts. At this time, I would like to have the school board committees report out their results for the month. Community relations did not meet this month, so I'm going to start with
curriculum, instruction, and technology.
The curriculum committee met on November 17th. Members in attendance were Rich Brome, Director of Curriculum, Rich Berjak, Assistant Superintendent, myself, Roger Straight, Kim Salino, Brian Chapman, and Jessica Viota. Actually, no, Jessica wasn't there. There are 7 action items tonight that we have on the agenda. The first one is 2 curriculum proposals. There were proposals for adding an advanced statistics class. It was noted that there need to be additional options for math for students at this level. In addition, we'll be proposing an honors reading in music ensembles. There is a proposal for next year's 2022-23 school calendar. The first day of school for staff will be August 22nd and 23rd for in-service days, and the first day for freshmen will be August 24th, with the first day of school being August 25th, and the last day of school being Tuesday, June 13th, 2023, with a tentative graduation of June 14th, 2023. We also reviewed an updated tuition contract with the Hunterdon County Vocational School District. We approved a interesting STEM dissertation by Mr. Audi, who will be looking at how students who are particularly geared towards STEM careers can benefit from field experiences through the STEM Club. We have also approving home instruction tonight and out-of-district placements. The committee also reviewed mental health and homework, as well as pandemic and instructional learning time loss. We continue to review our data around how our learning loss has been affected by the pandemic. One of the proposals that the committee is looking at is potentially seeing if we can look at class sizes in the policy committee. So Rob, I'm going to throw that over to you. And also the possible addition of additional math support for students during this challenging time. And with that being said, I'm going to make a motion and open up for any comments.
I'm sorry?
That's my report. So does anybody have any comments? before
Any
we-
comments or questions for Rachel?
Okay.
Okay. Facilities, finance, and transportation.
Yes, thank you, Jess. Our committee met virtually last Monday evening. Everybody was there except for Jess, and it was a short meeting. First thing we talked about, we already touched on, was the audit that we received the presentation of this evening. So with no formal recommendations from that audit, I'd like to congratulate Katie and the district office, with a job well done. Additionally, we were given a ESIP update. Phase 1 is now complete. That includes all the LED lighting upgrades and some of the mechanical system upgrades at North Hunterdon. As if you may recall, we did have an extra for some of the HVAC units over the cafeteria in North Hunterdon. So since that's now complete, some money you'll see is being returned tonight. The cost was reduced from $250,000 to $175,000, so roughly $74,000 are being returned from that project now that it's complete. Also, phase 2 is the solar panel installations. As you're probably aware, there have been some delays with that, some supply chain issues regarding getting some of the components. But we're looking at, we expect to receive materials in December and to finish that job in the February-March time frame. Other than that, we reviewed some agenda items, but I have nothing else. Any questions from the board? Thank you. Oh, Brian.
Oh, Brian.
Did you cover 13.7, agenda item 13.7, or is that a different committee?
Let me.
It's under
That
curriculum.
was curriculum.
It's under curriculum.
Because we didn't cover that in curriculum. The nurses?
No, we did not.
We
review
didn't
that
talk about it in
in
curriculum.
committee.
I think that came in late, and it was added to the agenda after that.
Okay. Anybody, so we can address it when the time comes, I guess.
Yes, if you have a concern
Yeah.
before we vote on it, absolutely.
Will we bring it up now? I have a question. I don't know who's going to answer it. But, are we agreeing to the recommendations that are in that? So the nurses are making recommendations about staffing.
So
If
yes,
we vote yes on that, are we agreeing to those recommendations?
what you're agreeing to is that there is that need, and that we are addressing it through the ways that they recommend addressing it. So yes, you are agreeing to those recommendations. It
Okay.
doesn't obligate you to staff those.
So we're asking the administration to address the recommendations. Either
That is
agree
correct.
with them or not agree with them, but we're
Right. Work with them to make sure these recommendations are implemented.
okay because they've asked for more help.
So
more,
basically, so every year, that's the same exact. What they're asking for is what the current practice is.
okay.
So, but this has to be approved every year as a compliance measure. So we aren't asking for anything more than what we currently do this year, which was approved last year at this time for this year.
Okay. So the administration feels we're adequately covered on nursing?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? The negotiations committee met, and the two matters that we addressed will be voted on later in the meeting. Shelley, do you want to give us an update on personnel?
Sure. Excuse me. The Personnel Committee met on November 17th, 6:30 p.m. virtually. All committee members were in attendance, as well as Jessica and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Rich Burgess. We reviewed the job description, and at this time, we're not making any recommendations for the job description of the Assistant Superintendent. And we also reviewed the personnel agenda items. And that's all I have for you.
Anybody have questions for Shelley? Policy and school security?
Yep, thanks, Jess. The Policy and School Security Committee met on November 15th at 5:30. All members were in attendance, and we covered a couple of items. You'll see on the agenda tonight, there are several policies being abolished, which were the Restart and Recovery Plan policies, so 1648, 1648-02, and 03. They are being replaced with first readings of the Road Forward policies, which are mandatory policies 1648-11 and 13, and then 2425, which is Emergency Virtual or Remote Instruction Program, and revisions to 5751, the Sexual Harassment of Students policy. Those 1648-11 and 13, they are basically the codifying of our implementation of our return to school this year and the requirements that we have to manage the COVID environment. And so these is following the Road Forward plan published by New Jersey. We're currently following these practices, and this policy basically catches us up and is mandatory policy codifying what we already have in place. The 1648-13 is school employee vaccination requirements. Again, this is policy that's required to implement Executive Order 253. And then 2425 is Emergency Virtual or Remote Instruction Program. And this codifies our existing in-place virtual and remote instruction plan that was approved by the Department of Education. The discussion on this was making sure that it was understood and clarifying that the county office must approve days that are designated as virtual, and the intent is for public health emergencies, so it's not a replacement of snow days or storm outages, that those would still be off school days because lack of electricity and internet would be a hindrance to enacting this policy. So this remote emergency virtual remote instruction program is intended to support any future public health emergencies. So that's up for first reading as well. The sexual harassment of students policy, we talked at some length about that. There's some substantial mandatory modifications to that policy, including implementing a Title IX coordinator, because we now need to manage sexual harassment to both the federal law and the New Jersey state law. So, this is a somewhat substantial revision to the policy, but it's a mandatory revision that essentially aligns our response to both federal and state law as required. So that's up for first reading, and then there's a revision to policy 1240, which is evaluation of the superintendent. This is some cleanup language to basically streamline the policy and make it more clear the flow of the evaluation and review process and the timeline for it, and to make it clearer and hopefully more effective. So that's up for first reading as well. We had discussion, but no recommendation made on remote participation by board members for board meetings. So that's going to be continued to be considered by the policy committee. And then we had a discussion about the future viability of the nominating committee, and the consensus of the policy committee was that we would continue with the existing policy of having a nominating committee, and that committee was appointed tonight. So that is my report. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Rob, a little bit in the weeds, I apologize, but for your 1648-11, the road forward one, it says the board considered recommendations outlined in the road forward, and then there's like a list of A through F things. Are those somehow referenced to the road forward document, those A through F things? It says, like, for example, A1 is vaccination. So what does that mean when the policy considers vaccination?
You're deep in the weeds, Brian. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. Rich, do you?
So all of those, it references appendixes there, but all of those appendixes are
In the road forward
in the
document?
road forward plan that we had approved by the county office that's posted on our website. So instead of reiterating all of that, we pointed back to that, I believe, at the end of it. So.
Okay, I'll ask you to take a look at that, because I don't believe you actually have linked those in a way that I could make sense of them. So just ask that you just take a look at that. I
Sure.
see the safe return plan, but I don't see the road forward plan linked in there.
Just so since this is the first reading,
Okay.
we have an opportunity, if we find things after this first reading,
Sure.
to change, and then they can be
Good.
implemented in a second reading.
All right, great. That's just my recommendation, to take a look at that. I didn't understand what was being suggested there.
Roger, or Brian, you would probably put together some thoughts to have for our next policy committee.
Yeah.
If you want the specific things you want us to address.
Yeah, we can talk.
But what you're bringing up specifically is a link to the full road forward document, right?
Thinking that's what this is meaning to point to, but it's not
linked.
obvious.
It's not obvious. I
Yeah,
understand.
but the first reading,
I got that now. Thank you.
Understood.
Any other questions for Rob? Were there any attendance or activity within the Hunterdon County Vocational School District, our liaison position, the New Jersey School Boards Association, the County School Boards Association, or the County Educational Services Commission?
Yeah, I do too. You can go first, Rach.
Okay. The Hunterdon County School Boards Association had a meeting last week. The topic was educational wellness, and there was a PowerPoint presentation. It was very informative. It was done by a school board president who's also a social worker, I believe, in southern New Jersey. And the takeaway was that to remember as a board that we're educational institutions. We must always be willing to teach and to learn. Education is not about what is on a test. Creating a healthy environment will lead to better outcomes for staff and students. Most of our wellness goals are not unique to the pandemic, although the pandemic allowed for us to actually reevaluate our priorities and change our delivery. Wellness must be a priority from the top down and receive buy-in to be successful. So it was very interesting, and I'm going to forward it to the whole board.
Thank you. Carrie, you follow?
I do. Well, the New Jersey School Board's delegate, we met this past Saturday, November 20th, virtually. And besides the reports, we were reviewing policies, the section of 3000, which is business and non-instructional operations, and the 4000 series, which was instructional and support personnel. All of the everything was reviewed and approved by the voting delegates, and there were no addendum changes. So what's in the delegate handbook that you can access is exactly how it was voted on. But they also wanted to point out, and I participated in the virtual workshop this year. It was outstanding, and we all were registered for it, and they've opened it up. So all of the sessions are available until December 28th. They were only going to leave it open for 30 days, but now it's open till the end of the year. And I would recommend everyone, if you have time, do some of the sessions because they were an outstanding virtual session this year. And that's it.
Any other delegates or representatives have any other meetings or comments to talk about? Do you have a word? Before we go to public comment.
Sure. Good evening. We're going to go into public comment now. I want to read what's on the agenda. We need to make a line. We need to make a line along the wall, folks. Okay, thank you. Folks, I want to read from the agenda, and I want to also remind folks about what our policy provides for public comment. As we indicated last month, public comment is respected, and public comment is encouraged, and we want to hear from public what you have to say. I'm going to read this statement, and I want to make a couple of additional comments. All right? During this portion of the meeting, the public is invited to address the board. The public is requested to sign the register provided, state their name, municipality of residence, group affiliation if applicable, and direct their comments to the school board president, not to the assembly, to the school board president. While all comments will be considered and a response will be forthcoming if and when appropriate, school board members will not respond to the speakers at the time of their appearance. The public comment period will be a maximum of 30 minutes in length unless there are unusual circumstances. We extended it at the last meeting, I believe, to an hour and 15 minutes. Those appearing will be allocated 3 minutes to speak. No one will be permitted to speak twice until those that have not yet had an opportunity to speak have had a turn. You all have heard the comment that civil rights and your civil rights end when somebody else's begin. Your comments ought to be respectful. They can be impassioned. We know that there are issues that we know you're all out here to be heard and to hear the board, okay? And we get that, we respect that. We also respect that there are differences of opinion. We encourage the speakers to speak politely, empathetically towards one another. We also expect there will be no heckling. And if there is an absence of decorum, we're going to ask law enforcement for assistance. And we thank you. Thank you for following these rules. Madam President.
During this portion of the meeting, I'm just going to reiterate what's on the agenda, just so that we.
I think I just read it.
You just read it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are going to hold to 3 minutes. So please. Yep.
Hello, My name is Becca Thomas. I'm a student at Voorhees, and as some of you may know, I made a speech at last month's board meeting regarding the attempted banning of books centered around LGBTQ characters and ideals. Many of these books were considered to be and labeled as pornography. Sure, there may be some mildly graphic scenes, but keep in mind that the books including said scenes like Juno Dawson's This Book is Gay and Alison Bechdel's Fun Home are meant to be informative, not erotic in any way. Being someone who is bisexual myself, it breaks my heart to know that we are still facing persecution in something as simple as a collection of books. We're hardly represented in books and movies. I bet most people probably wouldn't be able to name more than a couple movies with main characters in the LGBTQ community. But there are countless representations of heteronormative characters all around us. We have very little representation, and there are people that wish to take away what little we have left. I've read and I've conferred with people who have read several of the books that are being considered to be banned, and they are the kind of stories that guide someone like me in a way that no hetero book can. Even in the real world, myself and my LGBTQ peers face persecution just for being different, from being called slurs to being harassed, bullied, and for some, even abused. We shouldn't have to have our voices silenced and our opinions cast away just because we don't fit within a cisgender heterosexual normative. Thomas Jefferson stated in the preamble of the Declaration of Independence that we are all entitled to unalienable rights, namely life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Banning any of these books would break that 250-year-old promise, which is something that I don't think we want to do. We will not be silenced. Our voices will be heard because we are people and we deserve to be respected as such. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Max Moore, and I'm a transgender student at Voorhees. With the upcoming vote of the banning of the books in our library, it's important to look into the past at all of the times books and information has been banned, restricted, or burned. The impacts of banning a book simply for its diverse themes, as we've learned in the past, are extremely large. Taking away books in our library for students to access not only breeds a community of intolerance and hate, but it takes away from the students who need these books, the queer and BIPOC students whose history have been erased one too many times. Banning one book sends a message that says we are okay with fostering a community where students feel excluded and targeted simply for being who they are. Not only will the removal of these books set a precedent for the kind of actions we tolerate in these schools, but it also has the possibility of creating a chain reaction. If we ban these books, what stops us from allowing other books to be considered for bans? What stops us from going down the rabbit hole of banning any book that may challenge our worldview? Many people before me have established that these books do not contain pornography. So what is the removal protecting students from? The only thing it would accomplish is robbing students of the opportunity for them to be exposed to perspectives that may be different from their own. I can say for certain that there are books in our school library whose ideas I may disagree with, but I firmly believe that they should be available for students to access. The library is meant to be a place where different ideas and perspectives come together in one room. It's a place for students to access these ideas and make their own judgments. By voting to deny the students the opportunity to hear these different perspectives, the board would be doing the student body a great disservice. The library is not just a place to be exposed to different perspectives. For some students, the school library is the only place where they can access stories that show characters like them. The library is a place where students are able to learn that what they are is okay, that they are not wrong for being who they are. The library is the place where accessing healthy representation is possible. And from experience, I can say that it can help more than anything when it comes to coming to terms with identity. Taking these books away takes away the opportunity for students to have the realization that there are other people like them. It would be taking away the moment when these students understand that it's okay to be who they are. Taking these books away would not be protecting students. It would do the opposite. And taking these books away would not be protecting the community. It would do the opposite. Thank you.
I'm Cindy Carter. I'm a physician, and I'm a resident of Hunterdon County and Union Township. Hunterdon County is no longer listed as the healthiest county in New Jersey as it used to be. One of the main reasons is the high teen and young adult suicide rate, which is the highest per population in the state. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among youth ages 15 to 24, and LGBTQ youth are more likely to attempt suicide than their peers. This does not mean, however, that LGBTQ identity itself is the cause of these challenges. Rather, these high rates are likely due to bias, discrimination, family rejection, and other stressors associated with how they are treated because of their sexual identity or gender identity and expression. These challenges, referred to as microaggressions, can contribute to anxiety, depression, and other mental health challenges, as well as to suicide and self-harming behavior. Even if you do not think your child has LGBTQ thoughts or suicidal thoughts, if they have a friend that is LGBTQ plus or gender nonconforming and attempts or completes suicide, then your child is more likely to attempt suicide. The more open, accepting, tolerant, and loving we are of our children, the less likely they will feel devalued, bullied, and depressed. I disagree with banning these 5 books that show tolerance of LGBTQ perspectives.
Nobody's going to clap for me. I'm not here to talk about a book. I'm here to talk about policies. As a school board, you have 3 jobs. One is to evaluate the super. Oh.
Needed your name.
Oh, sorry, Karen Gove, Highbridge, New Jersey.
Karen, thank you.
You have 3 jobs. One is to evaluate the superintendent, one is to pass the budget, and the other one is to enact policy. You have a policy that you talked long and hard about at the beginning of this meeting about masks. And there are a number of people in this room that are refusing to put up their masks. We had a big staring contest with them at the beginning of the meeting. We sat and we waited to see if they were going to put up their masks, and they have not. You should have ended the meeting. Okay, we expect the kids to come to school and keep their masks on. I wear a mask for 8 hours a day. You're all sitting there with their masks. There's people out here who aren't wearing their masks. You should have canceled the meeting.
My name is Lynn Monroe. I live in Pattonburg, Union Township. First, I want to thank the board for all of your hard work. I recognize that being on the board is quite a challenge, and I know you're all doing the best you can in difficult times. I am a lesbian, and I have been out for 40 years. I have fought for LGBT, human rights across the board, and intellectual freedom all of those years. I am disgusted that we still have to fight against the banning of books. Disgusted, but I am not afraid. At last month's meeting, I intended to speak, but I saw that so many students wanted to speak, I didn't want to get in their way. And they were amazing. What I saw was a group of brave young people speaking truth to power. And it is truth, their truth, and my truth. I'm just glad that these days more young people have supported and wonderful families here. I have listened to the reasons people are objecting to the books, both in person and on YouTube. I am hearing a lot about pornography and graphic sex. I have also heard people stating that they don't think the school should be teaching about equity, equality. The thing that Jefferson put in the Declaration of Independence. I read 3 of the books. I want to speak to Fun Home. What I read in Phone Home was not just a description of a young woman's coming out experience. I read references to Immanuel Kant and Marcel Proust, fit into a context in a way that might inspire students to read classic literature. I read about heartache and forgiveness, and about the compromises we need to make as an adult, the kinds of things a young person will face as they enter the world as new adults. We need to provide a safe and welcoming space for students outside what is considered to be the majority demographic, which is not going to be much longer. There must be equality of access to books about the experiences of all people, of all races, all sexual orientations, and all gender identities. Our student body consists of these people from all of these demographics. We need to meet the students where they are. We need to do this to support all of the students. For the students who are bullied on a daily basis for their race or their LGBT status. For their allies who get bullied for being their friends. If there are concerns about sexual content, then decisions need to be made equally across all groups. And any committee formed for this purpose needs to contain people on both sides of this issue. not a committee that just caters to a small portion of district residents. Thank you for your attention tonight and for taking the time to receive input on this important matter.
Nicole Gallo, Lebanon Township. I would like to ask the board and administration and the librarian to apologize to the LGBTQ students in our district. It is shameful that you orchestrated and falsified that the books were an attack on them. Obscene and sexually explicit pictures and content do not belong in the high school library. To request to remove the books is to protect all students, including the LGBTQ. The request was not to remove all the LGBTQ books, only a select few that cross over the criminal threshold. Any book, regardless of genre, that violates state and federal laws has no place in our school. The LGBT community was victimized by you, and not the parents supporting the removal. Gaslighting is a term that is used to describe a person who effectively puts forth a false narrative that leads another person or a group of people to doubt their own perceptions and become distressed. This was done to distract and hide the truth that you allowed pedophilia into our school library. The board biasly opened last month's meeting, thanking the community for all the emails and letters that were received in support of the books and the LGBT school community. However, there was no mention in August by the board of all the emails and letters that were received against the mask mandates. Instead, the board showed their unprofessionalism by being disorganized, rude, and passive-aggressive. There were over 60 parents and students in attendance to show support of medical freedom. There was no mention or support or letters and emails that were received from the parents in support of the medical freedom. Instead, the president and vice president staged an opposition, using the president's daughter and the vice president's husband to incite the crowd. Then an HIB was filed on a student who disagreed with her daughter's public. Let the record show that this board is biased. The hypocrisy gets worse. The board attorney lectured the crowd last month as he explained our First Amendment right of freedom of speech. Does this free speech only support one side or both sides? Why did the board president file an HIB against a student for exercising his First Amendment right? Should the speaker who opposed the books file an HIB, for us speakers who opposed the books, should we file an HIB against the board because they show their support and bias against the opposition of the removal of the books publicly? The unethical behavior of the school board is evident to all. To close, as a taxpayer, I would like the board to address Mr. Bender, who has been absent from every board meeting that I've been at. We pay his salary and expect him to do his job. If he cannot handle this environment, then he should be removed.
Victoria Chabenko, Oxford. The debates of the Founding Fathers at the Constitutional Convention were well documented in journals and diaries, most notably the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers, which I'm sure have been removed from the school library to make room for more pedophilic and pornographic literature. Within these debates and journals, these courageous men outlined their plan for the public education system. Its purpose was to teach in this order love of God, love of country, and love of family. The Northwest Ordinance of 1787 further stated that religion, morality, and knowledge, being necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind, schools, and the means of education shall forever be encouraged. Thomas Jefferson himself had a plan of public education to be to help people understand and maintain their rights and exercise with intelligence their part in our self-government. It is no surprise that the current education system does everything possible to bastardize this man to completely delegitimize his messages. They do not want these children to know their rights because when they know them, they will know when they're being taken away. Today's public schools are no longer that. The public has no control over what goes on within their walls, despite electing officials to represent them. Today's schools are government schools. The people running them care nothing about the emotional well-being of the children, nothing about family values, and only about creating a population of perpetual victims and oppressors to further divide our country. Today's schools are government indoctrination camps that the foolish send their children to every day so the children can learn to hate God, hate their country, hate their families, and ultimately end up hating themselves. The nation's youth is being...
Hold on, please. There's not, folks, we'll shut it down. There's not going to be heckling. Guys, we'll take a recess. There's not going to be heckling. There's not going to be snickering. Please, okay? The other speakers weren't interrupted. Please show respect. Ma'am, please.
There are exemptions to the executive order, which I am in compliance with. Thank you.
Folks, we're not going to. Do you want us to recess? Please. Ma'am, continue.
Thank you. This nation's youth is being fed this indoctrination under the guise of inclusion and diversity to the point where they lack the primary education to understand the difference between tyranny and anarchy. The public education system has become an endless leech on taxpayers with very little productive result for our country. Our country is being destroyed from within by an army of children being created and indoctrinated by the very people entrusted to protect them. You, the board, are elected officials of our government, and to quote the Declaration of Independence, which is the foundation of the Constitution you took an oath to uphold, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. You forgot, you serve we the people, not NJEA and not Murphy. Code of Ethics of the School Board Members, Oath of Allegiance to the U.S. and New Jersey Constitutions, Oath of Allegiance to the Duties of Office, First and 14th Amendments of the Constitution, and Endangering Welfare of Children. These are all the codes that you are in violation of by allowing these mandates and policies. You have proven a dereliction of duty. You have proven unfit to perform the job you were elected for and took oath to perform. Mask mandates and inclusion policies are unconstitutional, and you took an oath. You are bound by your oath to disregard unconstitutional policies. You have failed the parents, you have failed the children, and you have failed our country. You should resign immediately. And parents, if they do not give up their positions, you have a duty to your children to take them. Remove your children from these indoctrination day camps and force these immoral minions of corruption out of our education system. Dismantle the school system and rebuild it as our founding fathers intended. This is not our only right, this is our duty. And by the way, I'm a heterosexual.
And Nicole, could you please put your mask up?
My mask is on.
Hey.
Okay.
Ma'am, please. Please.
Good evening. Valerie Rosen, Bethlehem Township. I'm a licensed psychotherapist in practice for 10 years and a parent of 2 kids who are 11 and 14 years old. I'm here to speak on the heels of the last Board of Ed meeting, which left a lot to be desired as far as addressing the concerns of parents who want to be sure that their children are receiving education, not indoctrination. My statement is based on common sense and clinical experience with human behavior, psychological, and emotional development. As Board of Ed members, you are tasked with ensuring the academic success of the students in your community. You are public servants who are elected by us to act in the best interest of our children. And this responsibility comes with allowing us to use our own judgment to make important, informed decisions on their behalf, and you have failed us. Instead of being our voice, you are acting as the foot soldiers of a far overreaching political system that has for too long waged psychological warfare on our kids by sowing the seeds of cultural Marxism in their minds and mentally assaulting them with this diluted masking ritual, which is very much akin to Munchausen's by proxy. The days where we will sit idly by and allow our entrusted Board of Ed members to participate in this abusive agenda are over. Enforcement of mask mandates and introduction of CRT, aka social emotional learning, into our curriculum is a far cry from carrying out your civic duties. I think we're all at the point of knowing that masks are not laws, but let's take a look, shall we? According to Black's Law Dictionary, 11th edition, the definition of a mandate is as follows. Under Roman and civil law, a written command given by a principal, someone like a governor, to an agent, specifically a commission or a contract by which one person, like a governor, requests the mandatory, who in this case is the public, to perform some service gratuitously, which means voluntarily. The commission becoming effective once the mandatory, the public, agrees. Therefore, a mandate only becomes mandatory once you agree to it. We do not agree. According to the Supreme Court's decision on the case of Miranda versus Arizona, where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rulemaking or legislation which would abrogate them. This applies to mandates, EOs, or any legislation that tramples on the rights granted to us at birth by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And yes, he loves everyone in this room. It is not the job of public servants or bureaucrats to teach our children about morals and values. That is our job. Instead of learning the things that will allow them to grow into productive members of society, our kids are being taught that they are part victim and part oppressor. As a result, they can't trust their own judgment, and they begin to view the world as an unsafe and chaotic place that will not allow them to thrive. They begin to view others as dangerous actors who owe them something, and they begin to view themselves as fragmented and purposeless. And this is harmful to kids no matter what their race, religion, gender, or sexuality is. I've worked with people who talk about suffering from white guilt only because someone told them that another white person were possibly related to in the very remote past could have owned slaves.
Valerie?
Eric Luklinko, I have 2 kids in North Hunterdon High School, Annandale, New Jersey.
Can you please put your mask up to speak?
There's no one directly in front of me, so
I know, but we're
it's
still going to
clear.
try to follow the mandate, and if you could please.
Okay, no
put it
problem.
up to speak.
No problem. I was just socially distanced, like the 6 feet thing.
I understand.
Yeah.
You need to
So
wear your mask.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Our concern is, this is a letter, this is an email that I wrote to Bender. He did not respond, just like he's not coming to these meetings. Our concern is clear. NHV is distributing obscene and illegal content to minors. Mr. Mizlanka informed us NHV took to address our concern by forming a review committee comprised of the staff who are responsible for bringing illegal content into the school. Policy 9130 states that the board directs the establishment of procedures for the hearing and settlement of requests and complaints that provide a means for resolving them fairly and impartially. Superintendent shall appoint a committee of professional staff members and community representatives to review the challenge materials against the standards for the NHV Policy 9130 makes clear. NHV Policy 940 makes clear the public complaints which are not resolved by informal discussion are to be reviewed and analyzed in a fair and impartial manner by a committee which the superintendent forms. We've reached out to the school directly out of concern for our children. The content we object to is blatantly illegal as it directly violates state NJSA 2C 34-3 and federal law 18 USC 1470, which prohibits the distribution of obscene material to minors. Additionally, obscene content directly violates North Hunterdon-Voorhees Regional High School District Technology Acceptance Use Policy, which every student and parent must sign annually. NHV has taken absolutely no steps to remove this illegal material from our children's reach. NHV actually deflected the issue of illegal obscene content by falsely associating content with LGBT content. NHV Policy 9320 acknowledges the board's custodial responsibility of the children in its charge and a duty to protect those children from persons not associated with the school district. How is NHV currently protecting our children from persons who are associated with the school district? Please provide specific, including members of the reconsideration committee, which you are charged with forming, what books the committee is reviewing, what board established standard the committee is utilizing, and when the committee is reviewing these contents in question. No response, sent on November 5th, and I think Mrs. Jessica Biota was on this email as well. This is the abbreviated version. The board and librarian's opinion do not supersede state and federal law.
Caroline LaQuinco, Franklin Township. North Hunterdon-Voorhees policy mandates written parental consent for students to watch R-rated movies at school. Presumably, this is because state law NJSA 2C, 34-3C, he knows it, prohibits showing adult content to minors. The content within the books, which us parents here we have submitted concerns about, extend far beyond an R-rated movie. Why does NHV not apply the same standards for books as it does to movies? They're both in the media center. Even more egregious, NHV takes 0 steps to even label books with sexual content. Labeling these books with categories such as humor, which one of the books in question is labeled as, purposely exposes minors to explicit content, purposely. We understand that Hunterdon County Prosecutor's Office is currently investigating the alleged illegal content. If, in the extremely unlikely scenario, the prosecutors do not find the material to be illegal, I request a list of comparable books which appeal to heterosexual students that are currently in the NHV library. As we stated before, parents are not aware of any sexually explicit books within NHV without the LGBTQ tag, which we support. We don't want the sexually explicit books of any nature. NHV staff claim this material is educational and imperative to the LGBT student education. Again, in the unlikely event that this material is found to not be illegal, the school is explicitly discriminating against the student population, which these books do not appeal to. Providing allegedly necessary educational material to one group of students and not providing similar educational necessary, supposedly, material to other students is actionable sexual discrimination. Is the material obscene, or are NHV's policies blatantly sexually discriminatory?
Hello, my name is Sarah Varga. I am a BHS alum, class of 2015, and I live in Lebanon Township. All right. Good evening. I first want to thank the members of the board for dedicating their time to serving their community. Members of school boards are being threatened and maligned across the country, and I support the safety of our board members. My first question is, what kind of example are we setting for our students with the way this meeting is being conducted? You set the rules, and we're taught if you don't follow the rules, you get removed from class and reprimanded. But here we sit with adults who are acting like petulant children who refuse to wear their masks, and you said at the very beginning that they must wear them. Then there was a standoff, and guess what you did? You let them win the standoff. So what example are you setting if you can't even enforce your own policies? Your police officers can't even enforce it. We're taught to respect the police and that if we just comply, we won't get hurt. Yet here would they sit not complying. What does that say to your ability to maintain a safe environment for everyone and anyone who enters your school? One of your district-wide goals for last year and this year has been focusing on student mental health and well-being. Mental health of students has been an ongoing topic in this area as more and more students struggle with depression, anxiety, and stress. If you can't maintain an environment where students won't be accosted and yelled at by adult parents, then how can you even say you care about their mental health? What kind of message do you think you're sending to students where they have to just sit and take verbal abuse for fear that they'll get in trouble for retaliation? By the way, that happened to me earlier in the very beginning of this meeting, and the police officer yelled at me for defending myself against parents yelling at me. This conversation is much bigger than book bans. It boils down to basic respect and trust. You have the power to enforce the policy, and you've chosen not to. This tells students that policies are based on the enforcer and that they can't trust you or this administration. If they don't trust you, how do you expect them to come and report to you about incidents of hate, bigotry, anything? You've just proven right here that you can't protect them. And by you, I mean specifically the system. I'm not maligning you guys as individuals, but if your policies can't even hold water here, how can they possibly hold water in a school? Also, just a reference to those parents claiming indoctrination against God, we stood up at the beginning of this meeting repeating a pledge of allegiance to this country under God. They spout stuff about Jesus Christ and God, but what happened to religious freedom? Why do these people get to dictate things in the name of God and Jesus Christ at a public school that has people in different denominations? If these parents actually truly cared about the safety of their students regarding explicit content, then they probably should have put Twilight, Catcher in the Rye, which literally has Holden, an underage teenager, having sexual contact with a prostitute. They should have put any Shakespeare, The Odyssey. Those are books taught in our curriculum. So if they actually cared, they would have done their research.
Yeah, how about everybody in line? How about everybody in line now? Let everybody in line now.
We're gonna end public comment after the last person in line right now.
Apparently there's not a setting for me this short. Hi, I'm Stephanie Yeager, live in Bethlehem Township. The community group Evolve officially formed at the completion of the 2018-2019 school year, but its members have children who attended NHV as early as 2014, and the alumni members share memories that predate that. As the BOE knows, Evolve was formed to advocate for student populations that have been targets of blatant hate or bias. Our members came together years ago due to the pain experienced by the NHV students they cared for. Our mission is to improve student climate, culture, and to amplify the voices of students who have felt unheard and unsafe to speak about their experiences here at NHV. Classrooms should be places where students feel safe and cared for. Bathrooms, locker rooms, and halls and buses should be free of messages that tell our marginalized populations that they don't belong here. Harassment, intimidation, and bullying data is artificially low in the district. For every one incident that is reported and documented, there are many more that are not. Our BOE and administrators need to strive to understand what about the environment is discouraging the reporting and making our students feel that they need to remain silent. Administrative responses have been inadequate. Just in the last month, students have proudly bragged about being racist, bragged about using the N-word without consequence, worn a Confederate flag shirt in school, and flashed the white power symbol. We still remain unaware of any steps taken by the superintendent to ensure these types of incidents will not reoccur. The lack of action to support the students who are targets of this hate encourages students to remain silent when they encounter bias and hate. Students see and believe nothing will be done if they report it anyway. No place for hate groups were formed for both North and Voorhees. However, the program's representatives from the Anti-Defamation League made abundantly clear that our district's attempts to address hate have fallen short. We failed to earn the designation of no place for hate schools. While we commend the district for starting the process to address bias, it is not being done consistently across buildings or with concern for the marginalized students that it aims to protect. NHV has not put students in the driver's seat to build movement towards positive change, as the ADL recommends. In parent advisory and BOE meetings, Evolve members hear unanimous concern for suicide prevention and preserving the mental health of our young people, and yet nothing has been done that amounts to a change in the district's climate and culture. We can't fix a problem we haven't acknowledged, fully defined, or don't understand. In this vein, we ask the board and administration to take a few steps back and retain an outside evaluator to perform a comprehensive equity audit. What we learn from an independent assessment will help the district allocate resources and take action to address bias and make the schools welcoming for all students. We welcome interested students and community members to join Evolve. Thanks to the BOE for all the time and energy you volunteer for this work. You are appreciated. And also, I just wanted to thank Mr. Chapman and Ms. Hoffman in the announcement I heard earlier for taking interest and giving additional time to participate in the No Place for Hate groups. Thank you.
Highbridge, New Jersey. Thank you, board members. I appreciate your patience and your diligence. The public comments at the last few board meetings focused on a library. And for those of you who haven't been in such a facility for a while, a library is a forum for free investigation into information and ideas. Among the principles that guide libraries is the American Library Association's Bill of Rights, which states in Article 1, books and other library resources should be provided for the interest, information, enlightenment of all people of the community that the library serves. And it boils down to a simple idea. The library is open to all the students and the staff and to the wide range of interests and topics that appeal to the readers. Our district is fortunate to have such a space maintained by professional librarians in both schools. The books in the library are not required reading. They are voluntary reading for independent interests and research. And if you browse the shelves of the library, a world of information will open for you. Topics on everything from Chinese mythology, eating disorders, African-American authors, economics, Donald Trump's 60s music, lesbian fiction, the Communist Manifesto, and even Kim Kardashian. The library really is open. And if any of these topics offend you, don't read them. Leave them on the shelf. You can find something else to read, but what you cannot do is take the books away from the next reader who comes through that door. And for example, the book that the LGBTQ student checks out may help answer questions they don't feel comfortable asking out loud yet. And that book could be a lifeline, literally a lifeline for coping with the isolation of feeling different in a community that shuns you. Your personal aversion to the topic does not give you the right to restrict others from that information. And I get it. Not every book is fit for every reader, but there is a solution for that. You have a conversation with your kid about your expectations and your limit, and you trust your kid to follow your instructions. And if you don't like a book, again, just don't read it. The ALA Freedom to Read statement offers a lot of guidance. Parents and teachers have a responsibility to help them learn to think critically for themselves. And these are affirmative responsibilities not to be discharged simply by preventing them from reading works. And our district board and administrators must uphold their responsibility to prepare our students for life beyond the confines of Hunterdon County. Defend our students' freedom to read and oppose the banning of books. And please try to keep our libraries open for them. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for continuing to be here and listen to us. My name is Alexa Offenhauer, and I live in Clinton. I was here last month, and I was able to talk last month about how I had read the book Lawn Boy, how I had found it to be an excellent choice for young adult readers. Today, I also want to add, as I was listening, I'm not as prepared as some of the other people who were here who spoke eloquently, our students and other members of our community. I wasn't going to speak, but hearing some of the misinformation that I was hearing earlier, I had to say something. And what I want to say is that there's a conflation going on here. Talking about race isn't racism, and talking about sex isn't pornography. And that's what these books are doing. And some of the topics are mature, which is exactly what high school is supposed to help students become. And I know that these students who've read these books know what they're talking about when they say these scenes aren't included in these books in order to be explicit or in order to excite you. In many cases, they're descriptions of difficult situations that these characters were in because they were LGBTQ. And so the reason that the LGBTQ literature is going to include the topic of sex is that the identity of LGBTQ, while not limited to the topic of sex, includes that topic. And so it's absolutely vital that we not pay mind to this idea that these books were only picked out because they were explicit. I asked some of the students earlier if they would look up on the school library the book Forever by Judy Blume to see if it is in fact in the North Hunterdon Library. I figured it would be. Judy Blume wrote this one young adult book that is, she wrote children's literature mostly, but Forever is basically a book about sex. And it is not a book about difficult sex. It is a book that is meant to be interesting and intriguing to readers about sex. It's pretty explicit. It's about a young woman who meets a guy, they start dating, they have sex a bunch of times, and then at the end of the book, they break up. When I was a kid, we passed that thing around from all of our houses. We stuck it under our bed, our pillow at night. Like, we read it because we needed to learn about this topic. And that was actually a pretty safe and good way to learn about it. And while I absolutely agree that these books that are being discussed are not just about sex or even really primarily about sex, the fact that they do include sex is a reason to keep them in the library, not a reason to take them out. Thank you.
My name is Mary Ann Drall. I'm 3 Stone Barn Road, and I was not intending on speaking this evening, but I would like you to know that I am a committed conservative Christian. And I have raised children in this district, and I am proud of who my family has become. My children have listened many, many times to what I believe to be a very leftist ideology that has left the Liberal Party and has infiltrated our educational system. I am disheartened as a mother and as an American, and I was disheartened with what I saw again tonight. I have never seen my people so divided. I would like you to know that my children have suffered as conservative Christians in this school district. And I would like you to feel their pain. And maybe in the future, I will share with you some of the things that they wrote as students. But I don't want to do that tonight. But I want you to know that as a committed Christian, I believe that Jesus Christ wants me to walk with all people. All people are deemed sinners, but it doesn't mean that I have to go and live my life according to what other people choose to do with their lives. They are free citizens of the greatest country on earth. We were endowed with rights from our Creator, and those rights came from brilliant men who are now being taken down in our courthouses. Thomas Jefferson was just taken down. How pathetic to do that to a man who was so learned that to him spent hours doing nothing but reading about ancient literature and knowing the great works, something that should be imparted to our children, that we will still not at this time recognize the value of those ancient works. And all the John Locke and Montesquieu, we have wonderful history teachers in this district. I know we do because I know those men. And I believe one woman was also, my children had high adoration for. Those men are trying to impart pride in our children. I know they are. But we have to bring these children together more. I am appalled at what I see in our nation. I'm praying for our nation, and I will not apologize for having the values that I have, that I'm imparting to my children, that they're going to show their children what their mother and father gave them. My husband and my father had a lot in common, and my daughter sees that, and I value that. And I'm not apologizing for that. That's my value system. I'm not ridiculing anyone. If people have alternative genders or lifestyles, that's their choice. I have known gay people all my life, and the people I knew were very elegant people. So I don't really care what anybody thinks here, but I know how to treat people nicely, and I'm also entitled to my opinion.
Hey, come on.
Bang the gavel.
Let's get next together.
Let's go bang the gavel.
Vote on all the so we have agenda items.
We're gonna move forward with the meeting. Everyone, I'd really like, if you could, if you're exiting the building, if you could do so quietly. Thank you. I'd like to call for a motion and a second to adopt curriculum changes, agenda items 11.1 and 11.2.
Motion.
Commencing in the 2022-2023 school year.
Motion.
Second.
Rob, Deb.
Rob, Deb.
This is a roll call vote.
Ms. Bonomi?
Yes.
Mr. Chapman?
Yes.
Ms. Crisologo?
Yes.
Mr. Farbanish?
Yes.
Ms. Hintz?
Yes.
Ms. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchberger?
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Mealy?
Yes.
Ms. Salino?
Yes.
Mr. Straight?
Yes.
Ms. Fiato?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I call for a motion and a second to approve agenda items 13.1 through 16.15.
So moved.
Yes.
Second.
Roger?
Yes.
I believe there's a question on the motion.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Is there a time for a question on the content?
This is discussion.
There's a question on the content for this, okay.
Quick one, I think. 16.6, Katie, Edge Cooperative is for what?
That's a technology consortium, so we'll be able to get better competitive quotes for technology items.
Technology
Software.
meaning computers?
Yes.
Information technology. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Devices, software,
All right.
all the above.
Any other discussion on the motion?
I just have one question. It's great to see that the addition of boys volleyball. I'm just questioning, is this replacing a sport or activity previously on Schedule C? Sorry.
No, it's an addition to Schedule C.
So it's an
It's an addition, yes.
class.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yes, Jess, what did you say the motion was from to 16.1?
15.
16.15.
Yeah, it's right on the agenda. Any other questions?
Voice vote.
Voice vote.
Voice vote. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
I'm going to abstain on 16.7.
Okay.
Any opposition?
And I will be abstaining on 16.7.
Okay.
Shelley. Okay.
Any?
Got it.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries.
Motion carries.
We're gonna go right to old and new business, and I don't know if I need a motion or a second, but I want to incorporate item number 20 and write all in one. So 17 and 20, because we're passing over executive session. So one call for old and new business. I have new business. You have new business? Thank you, Rachel. I would expect nothing less.
Listening to the students report out on the sports and also listening to Ms. Berjak's report out on the sports, I'd like to see if we could possibly go back to recognizing students for academic and athletic recognition. We had previously done that prior to the pandemic, and now that we're in person, I'm suggesting that we go back to that.
I have no opposition to that. Yep. Rachel work with the principals.
Thanks.
Any other older new business?
Well, I just got a comment. So I spent the last minute or so trying to find this. I was told that all the old and new business is listed somewhere in resource materials. I can't find it. Somebody tell me exactly where to find it.
I can.
Can you please?
Would you like to know now, this very second, or after?
Yeah, why don't you tell me
All right. Go to the board shared drive.
I'm on it.
Board agenda and resources.
I'm on it.
BOE resource materials.
I'm on it.
scroll down to the spreadsheet. It's like the sixth thing down called BOE action items.
So it's not under a folder. It's a single spreadsheet.
See it? BOE action items. You double click on it.
BOE action items?
Yeah.
Why would it be called BOE action items?
I'm
When it's
just,
old and new
we're not I'm not debating the naming of it. I'm just showing you
Well,
where
I'm
it
just
is.
saying, how am I gonna find it when it's not called?
Well, now you know. Maybe that's the business you suggest renaming it.
Can I make a motion to rename the file old and new business, or make it a little easier for me?
Should we form a naming committee?
Would you like to
We do
name,
not
would you
need
like
a
to
committee
chair
for
the
this.
We have a motion on the floor.
Can we just change the name?
Second.
I think we might be able to do that for you, Ryan. All right. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. I'm going to call for a motion and a second to approve agenda items 21.1 and 21.2, including hand carries provided. Those items include the personnel agenda, the executive minutes from October 22nd, 2021, and also to include that we are resolved to approve the settlement of litigation involving student number.
Will be inserted.
Or,
Do you have it?
I have
Nope,
it.
sorry.
I do, I have it. 202-33524, and resolved to approve settlement of litigation involving student number 20227628. We're resolved to approve the MOA with the NHV BOE for the period of 2021 to 2024. We're resolved to approve an increase in the compensation for certain non-affiliated staff in the amount of 3% for the current year. We're resolved to approve Rich Burgess as acting superintendent upon the terms to be negotiated and set forth in an addendum approved by the EC.
Motion.
Second.
Rachel. Robin, Rachel.
Okay. And this is a roll call vote.
Ms. Bonomi?
Yes.
Mr. Chapman?
Yes.
Ms. Crisologo?
Yes.
Mr. Farbanish? Ms. Hintz?
Yes.
Ms. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchberger?
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Yes to all except N8 dash or dot 3.1. I'm abstaining.
Okay, can you repeat the number?
N8.3.1, abstain. N8.3.2, abstain. N8.3.24, no. N8.3.25, no.
I have N8 3.1, N8 3.2, N8 3.24, and
25.
N8 3.25. And those are all abstentions?
The first two are abstentions, the second two are no.
Second two are no. Got it. All right. Mr. Mielek.
Yes.
Ms. Salino. Mr. Straight.
Yes.
Ms. Fiato.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I have a call, a motion, and a second. to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Second.
Roger.
Anyone
Shelley?
opposed? All in
Shelley.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.